Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a very special guest, a first year student from Padova, Vinny, who is also a general knowledge expert, so to say. I don't know if you want to do a brief introduction to yourself.
So, hello guys, I'm Vinicius. I'm from Brazil. I'm a first year student here at Padova, and well, last year I did the IMAT and got in Padova with a score of 10 out of the 12 out of the 12 questions of general knowledge.
See, I think that's so impressive because the second the IMAT paper came out, me and my friends, like all my fifth year and sixth year friends, we sat down and tried to see how many of the general knowledge questions we can answer. And I think between the five of us, we only got like six or seven correctly. So it's absolutely amazing that you got 10 out of 12. And do you think there was like a secret to your success? Like, was there a way to study? Like, how do you think? I don't know, like, what's your general opinion on having so many general knowledge, and how did you tackle it?
Well, I must say, considering it is an international test, not only an Italian test, I don't consider it truly fair to have general knowledge so extensive as the IMAT general knowledge section is, especially since, well, a person from India, a person from Korea wants to study the history of the European Union, the history of the cinema, the history of the Italian cinema, and so on. The secret of it, I think, is doing lots and lots of questions. I was fortunate enough to always be curious about general things, about the history of cinema, about the history of Europe, that we study a little bit in my country, and well, I had a good historic background, so this is why I could manage to do so. But for a person who's studying and don't have a good background in history, I think the best option is to buy a book of questions on general knowledge and do them every day until you can at least know a little bit of general knowledge. Because studying only with books, with textbooks on general knowledge, it will take a whole life to cover all the topics.
And when you were like approaching it, did you ever do like an analysis of the past questions and see what topics they preferred? Like, did you do any sort of targeted study, or did you just solve past questions?
I solved past questions, but I solved the topics that were covered, but I focused more on the topics that I didn't know so much, especially regarding the organization of the European Union and the European laws, which were something that I didn't study, and I thought that if I asked for it, it would be a problem. Also regarding the location of touristic place in Europe. For example, this year we had a question about the theaters. But regarding this question, there's a question to ask it, show a list of theaters and a list and ask it to select the answer that had the correct theater and the correct city. And well, for that question, the correct answer wasn't even Europe. It was in the United States, a metropolitan.
Okay, so wait, so you're saying that one of the things you did was you looked up like the most important landmarks in different cities in Europe, and then it didn't
Yes.
even work because the question wasn't even in Europe.
Now, that one worked because, well, the Metropolitan is a really famous opera house, and so I could get the hang of it. But even if the general knowledge section has a focus on European history and European landmarks and European law, it can appear one of these that the answer is not even in Europe, it is in the United States or it is in another part of the world.
Okay, so again, coming back to you really can't actually prepare for it, I guess. I don't know. I don't know, like, one of the reasons why I did actually, like, we were just talking about this before I started recording, but I keep getting questions on how can you prepare for general knowledge, how can you prepare, and I'm kind of like, you can't really, that's the point, you know, you can just read a lot or know a lot or be curious about the world, but they really don't believe me because I think when I sat the IMAT, there was only two questions and now there's 12. So I was really hoping by getting someone who, you know, scored so highly, they could hear you say, you can't really prepare for it. But Is there any like general advice you would give about it? Like anything at all?
For the general knowledge part, like I said, there are some books, especially if you can read Italian, there are one or two books on general knowledge that don't have many texts, but has a lot and lots of questions. And I think the best option to study for general knowledge part is by solving questions, because well, by solving questions you will at least get the hang of the general knowledge part. So the questions aren't complicated. They are if you know the answer, you know them. It's not you don't have to think about it so much. And due to this, doing questions is the best option to study because it won't consume as much time as reading textbooks, and you get the hang of a general part of history, a general part of law, a general part of cinema history. And I think this is the best option.
Wow, actually, I didn't know there were books for it. So there's Italian books. I mean, I can link them in the description. I had no idea. Because to me, if someone asked me, like, okay, you're going to do a book on general knowledge, I wouldn't even know where I'm going to start from, you know? Because, like, I mean, in the past, I've been to events I called pub quizzes where they just ask you general stuff. And, like, I never knew how people prepared for those. So whenever, I mean, that's crazy that there's actually books on it. Like, I'm actually really surprised to hear that.
There are new books actually. I think there is a publishing house here in Italy called Alphatest that specializes in publishing books on the Italian exams. And I think 3 years ago, they finally published a general knowledge book. However, like I said, it is in Italian, but has a lot of questions, especially is a exam manual on the general knowledge part of the Italian exams, and it covers most of the topics that you can find in IMAT as well.
That's a really, really good tip. So I'll try to link those in the description. But like, were you always, as weird as it sound, like, were you always like just a curious kid who like just read a lot about the world, or is it something that came like later on? So like, if someone's watching this and they're they're like 16 or 17 and their general knowledge isn't that high, do you think it's like too late for them because you started so early, or what would your general take be on that? Like starting now?
Well, I was always a curious kid. I always liked reading about history and many other things. But if you have 16, if you have 17, I don't think it's too late to do so, especially since, well, from when I was a kid from until now, I stopped seeing the general part of it and started studying more specific things because the general part can be covered in a general history book that has, how should I say, 1,000 pages or something like that. And that book can be covered within a year, within 2 years. So if you have 16 or if you have 17, I think you still have time to prepare for general knowledge in a good way.
Um, but yes, like I would also kind of agree, especially because I personally have only started reading a lot more in the last few years, and I don't know why in my late teens I just completely stopped reading, so I don't think it's too late. But do you think, and I don't know, this is kind of a weird question, but do you think it's like worth starting now? Like for life, yes, I think it's definitely everyone should start. I'm not saying that. But do you think it's a high yield way to spend the next few months preparing for the IMAT? Like, what would be your take on that?
Well, the problem is for IMAT we also have to consider the other sessions, so biology, chemistry, mathematics, physics, logical reasoning, which is also another session that you don't have a specific way to study for. But returning to general knowledge, you have to know how to equilibrate the things between biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and general knowledge. Because if you only focus on one of the sections, you won't be able to pass the exam and the test. And well, it is worth it, but I don't think in only 1 year you'll be able to cover all of the sessions and completely. Especially if you focus on general knowledge, you fail in all the other sessions.
Okay, so basically, it is worth it, but not really worth it.
Yes.
Basically. Okay. Is there anything else that you would add to the general knowledge part, like that you would want to talk about, or if you could tell yourself to do something differently, like anything at all?
Well, actually, I'm truly glad of my past self to being so interested in history and having and getting me a good grade in the in the general knowledge part. But a tip that I can give is be curious. Be curious to know more about the things you see. If you are walking your own city and see something that catches your attention, try to understand what made the people in the past do that building, construct that building, uh, have the landmark. Because well, this is the first step on getting on with history, and also it not only will help you in life, it will also help you. Well, it definitely will help you in life, and this is a major point of it. But it will also help you to have curiosity to read books on history, and this will help you to understand the contents that are required and asked for the general knowledge section.
Okay. I think very nicely put. So this is kind of like the first part. For the second part, I want to ask you all about like life in Padova because also when I visited, I was very surprised by how into Padova you were. You know, like that was like such a refreshing and nice take. So for those of you who are watching this on the YouTube channel, the second part of our interview is going to be on our podcast on Spotify because I don't really want to care about how long it's going to take or if people are going to like have retained the information. So I guess I'm going to end this part now and we're going to start the second part for the podcast. Bye.